Okay, our next delegation is from Hotel Dieu Grace Hospital Healthcare and the Windsor Regional Hospital. Looking for a motion to hear Mr. Cook, Mr. Mouget, and Ms. Caffer. Moved by Mr. Carlo, Mr. Fazio. All in favor? That's carried. And welcome. We almost have an idea why you're here. But we're anxious to hear your proposal. Dave, are you starting out?
I'm going to start just for the first few minutes to just give a brief remind you of how we got from the beginning to this point, and then Janice and David are going to get into the details of the actual where we're at with the project and what the plan looks like. I want to thank you, first of all, Mr. Warden and members of council for allowing us to be here tonight, but more than that, I want to thank you on behalf of Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare and Windsor Regional and our steering committee for your support and your participation in the last few years from when this has started with our consultation. As you will recall, back in 2012, a task force was appointed by Dwight Duncan to get the ball rolling, and that was with Tom Porter and Teresa Perusa and myself. You were good enough to loan us, as on our advisory committee, Brian Gregg at that point, and he's been with us since that point. We want to thank you for that as well. He's provided great counsel for the project and insight for our community. So I want to just remind everybody how much we've consulted the community. We started with the task force. We met with the city council, county council. We had community meetings. We had phone-ins. We had town hall meetings. We had the ability for people to participate on our website for the task force. And the task force eventually, that was back in 2012, came to the conclusions that the community supported moving to a single site acute care hospital. At that point, you'll all recall the challenge still was to decide how the project or how the new hospital would be governed. That's been an issue that has bedeviled hospital rationalization in our community for years. But the hospital boards and the CEOs took that challenge on, and that's when we had reconfiguration of the system thanks to the leadership of the two hospital boards. So that was a historic realignment of healthcare. Then the steering committees were started, and we started the process of consultation of what programs and services and what the hospital would actually look like. So I want to give just some numbers. We had 150 medical experts and community members who directly participated in Phase 1A. We had 30 town hall community speaking engagements over the last couple of years where we presented, but we also listened and answered questions. We had 4 radio phone-in town hall broadcasts on CKLW where we answered questions and listened to points of view. We had over nearly 600 residents who provided online feedback on our website with regard to the site selection criteria. And I want to remind people that, again, the site selection criteria, there was draft criteria that was put out, and then we asked the community to look at that draft criteria and to give us their input, what needed to be weighted more heavily, had we missed something, and we got lots of input. And we did adjust the site selection criteria to reflect what we had heard from the community. We had hundreds more people who gave us their thoughts through emails, phone calls, and I know we all got lots of input when we were at a grocery store, a corner store, or just walking the street. So there has been lots of participation. We had 22, after the criteria was finalized, we had 22 property owners or groups who submitted their sites for consideration for the site. And then we had 75 people, because we even opened up who would be on the site selection committee. We said to the community, you want to be on the site selection committee? Put your name forward, your resumes, and let's take a look. We had 75 people in the community that put their names forward to be on the site selection committee. And then we had the 10 volunteers who spent up to 1,500 hours analyzing, applying the criteria, and working out the actual decisions. I can tell you, I know many of you have been involved in public affairs for a long time, as have I. And I've been involved in a lot of consultations and a lot of community engagement processes over the last 40 years. I do not believe there has ever been one in this community that has been involved as many people and has given as much opportunity for community to be involved. And we have a reason for wanting that. We did it that way because at the end of the day, when this hospital is built, it's not going to be David's hospital, it's not going to be the board's hospital, it's going to be the community's hospital. We want the community to feel ownership of this important facility. We need a new hospital. You know, and I know, we've had relatives in, we've been in ourselves. We know that the two facilities that we have need work. One of the things the task force looked at was, if we kept the two facilities as is, what are the proposals that are there forward now to upgrade those facilities? And the cost was going to be around $2 billion, and we would still essentially have the same problems, because we would have had Hotel Dieu upgraded, but still the same physical facility. This is the way we need to go. The council, all of council has been so supportive over the last number of years on healthcare generally, but on this project in particular. And that's why we're here tonight, to take this to the next stage, explain to you what the proposal is, and answer your questions. I'll turn it over to Janice.
Thank you very much, Dave. So I have the privilege of speaking to you tonight about the actual hospital system and what the different component parts are and what you can expect when we are successful in building it. So the first piece of the system that we're going to talk about is the new single-site acute care hospital. We've heard a lot about that, and Dave has spoken to the fact that it is going to be state-of-the-art. It takes everything that we have currently in Windsor-Essex, all of the regional programs, cardiology, cancer care, obstetrics, pediatric, everything that we have, and takes it to the next level. It improves it from the perspective of efficiency, equipment, environment, infection control, and all of the pieces that we can't do in our current facilities in the two hospitals we have now. The new hospital will have 500 beds approximately, greater to the current number or equal to. And on this site, Windsor Regional Hospital is responsible for all of the services. The second piece is what happens at Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare at Tay4 campus. And Dave referenced the community consultation that happened, and part of the development that's happening on the Tay4 campus in the proposal is as a direct result of those conversations and the consultations we had. We have an opportunity here in this proposal that's before the ministry to be able to create a mental health system as well as a new acute care hospital. So what we've proposed in this healthcare system is to realign the acute care mental health service delivery with what's currently provided on the Tay4 campus, which is called tertiary mental health services, and provide the opportunity for one organization to coordinate and manage all of the bedded and the outpatient and outreach mental health system for Windsor Essex. We've also included, as a result of consultation, access to dialysis services at the Tafor campus, which will give greater access to those folks that are coming in to the Windsor area for dialysis programming. There is already a dialysis satellite site from Windsor Regional Hospital at the Leamington Hospital, and this improves access on the west end of Windsor to those catchment areas. And we also have a proposal to expand diagnostic imaging and some of the ultrasound and access to diagnostics in that space in the Tafor campus. Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare will be responsible for all the services that are on this site. The Willette campus, which is the old Hotel Dieu Grace Hospital, and it still remains a bit confusing for many people. I hear in the news periodically still Hotel Dieu Grace Hospital when it is the Windsor Regional Willette campus. But as part of this organizational restructuring when the new acute care hospital comes on site, Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare takes back the Willette campus. And we're going to take it back and develop on that campus. The anchor program will be mental health services. So we've had the development now for probably about 18 months or so, what's called a Transitional Stability Center, and that will be in the downtown core in Windsor. That is a leased space, so the Transitional Stability Center will return to be the anchor program on the Willette campus, along with chronic disease management services. And it's a large parcel of property in the downtown core, so we're also proposing the development of what's called a community hub. We don't know exactly what the services will be on the community hub. We're going to be going through an extensive community consultation to work out what those details will be, and that consultation began today with the initial mail out to some key stakeholders that will help us determine what are some of the options in the downtown on that site. At the former Grace Hospital site, there will be an urgent care center, and David has been talking about the urgent care center as an emergency department outside of the emergency department of an acute care hospital. So you'll see signs across any city metropolitan area talking about urgent care. This is very different than those. This particular type of urgent care center is staffed by the same emergency department physicians and nursing and respiratory therapists and all the various allied health people that would be staffing the new acute care hospital emergency department. They'll rotate through. It'll have full diagnostics, so CT scanner, lab pharmacy, it has all the diagnostics. What's different about the urgent care center is that ambulances will not attend there with individuals who require service. Ambulances will be going to the new acute care hospital. But if someone is at the urgent care center that requires admission, and a small percentage of population that goes into the emergency department anywhere in Canada requires admission, they could be transported by ambulance to the new acute care hospital. Windsor Regional Hospital will be responsible for all services on this site, and they'll also be offering some space for chronic disease management for that community as well. The Metropolitan Campus, which is where the current Windsor Regional Hospital Met campus is located, after the new acute care hospital is built, will be transferred ownership to the City of Windsor. And it'll be a clean site, and the City of Windsor will be able to determine what they're going to do with that space. As you know, if you've been at the Met campus, it's in a residential area and a very busy, Tecumseh Road is very busy. So there will be some plans developed on what will happen on that campus. Leamington District Memorial Hospital is a key part of the Windsor-Essex Hospital system and will remain a key part of the Windsor-Essex Hospital system. Leamington has had representation on the steering committee for the full component of all of the planning to date, and there won't be any projected changes to the services or the offerings at the Leamington Hospital as a result of the new acute care hospital being built. What I will say, though, is I do believe that the partnership and the collaboration that has been developed through the planning for the new acute care hospital and the system that we are putting forward to the ministry and before council tonight has resulted in a new and improved, not that there was a problem with the relationship before, but a new relationship amongst all of the health providers in the Windsor-Essex area, and the opportunities for collaboration have never been as good as they are now. And with that, I think I turn it over to
There we go. Hear me now? Thanks. I'm really messing this speaker up, right? There. Something doesn't like me here. Sorry. That. There we go. So, thank you very much for allowing us to be here. So what we're talking about tonight is a $2 billion investment in the healthcare system in Windsor, Essex, the hospital healthcare system. The great part about that investment is it's 90% from the province of Ontario. And when the province of Ontario or someone else is investing 90% into a project, into something worth $2 billion, and we end up owning the assets at the end of the day as Windsor, Essex, then we have to really look hard and take advantage of those opportunities, because really they come along once in a lifetime. And there's a lot of towns, municipalities in the province of Ontario that we've all invested in. We talked about that before. And we've paid our share of that 90%. And there's some who are right behind us in the process, the Muskokas, the Ottawas, and they would love to again, spend our 90%. So what we're here tonight before is to talk to you about our 10%, our local share in the investment. So just some of the general benefits of the new acute care hospital. As it's been outlined, it costs less, as Dave stated, than updating the current facilities. The plan that was in place with respect to the Olette campus was over $1 billion to update it. The problem was pretty much the day you moved in was the day it became obsolete again, and it needed to be continued to be renovated. And that's what faced the ministry when they were faced with the plan from the Metropolitan campus and the plan for the Olette campus, said there's got to be a better way. And that's when they challenged the two hospital organizations, and that's when they asked Dave and the committee to come forward to say, let's look at a better way forward. And we're confident that with the group of everyone involved, which included Brian on the committee, and included volunteers from our community, the hundreds and thousands of individuals that Dave has indicated, we've come up with, in my opinion, they've come up with a really good solution for our system moving forward, and we got to take advantage of it. Offers patient and family centered care, as Janice talked about, improved infection control. That's the biggest struggle with the way we're laid out now. One of the largest struggles is instead of having 80% private rooms, we have approximately 20% private rooms. As a result, it's very difficult if someone comes in from the community with an infection to keep it isolated to that individual. It gets spread. With the private rooms, not only does it limit that clearly, but number two is it provides that better environment for the patient. We talked about this before, the amount of times I get calls that people can't be with their loved one in the room because of the roommate keeps them up all night, or roommates, and they can't sleep, they can't get healthy themselves. Helps attract and retain top healthcare professionals. This, along with the medical school, have been game changers for Windsor, Essex. The individuals we're able to recruit to our region who are not only interested in medical education, but now very much interested in being part of the design and the build and the operation of the new Windsor, Essex healthcare system. Times have changed dramatically with respect to that, and it allows us to recruit individuals to Hotel de Grace Healthcare as well as Windsor Regional Hospital. And it includes state-of-the-art healthcare benefits. As stated, 80% single-family rooms, patient and family-centered design, enhanced capability, capacity for research and clinical trials, state-of-the-art emergency facilities, modern surgical and operating rooms. So where are we at in the process? We're at a very early stage, but a critical stage. We're at what's called stage one. Stage one has 1A and 1B. We just submitted 1B to the government. It's a 5-stage process. We're still at the if and when phase. If we're going to have a project and when we're going to have a project. Moving to the next phase is critical. Stage two is when you take away the if and it just becomes a matter of when. So up to this point, we received approximately $2.5 million in planning money from the Ministry of Health to do stage 1A and 1B. There's $35 million sitting at the Ministry of Health. Before Minister Duncan left, he made sure that planning money was there, but the only way we can get access to that planning money is we have to get to stage 2. The only way our Ministry of Health is going to release those funds to move us to stage 2 is if they know we can raise the local share, because they're not going to invest their $35 million if we don't stand a chance in raising that local share. Stage 2 and 3 kind of work together. Is once you move into stage 2, then you're going to be moving into stage 3, which is really, that's where the rubber hits the road. You start doing preliminary designs of the facility. That's where we're talking about the community back involved, where we're going to be mocking up some patient rooms, mocking up some areas, and bringing the community in to take a look and give us ideas about how we can change it, how we can modify it. Because again, as Dave stated, I'm probably not going to be here when this place is built. Janice and Dave probably won't be here. I mean, in this capacity, we'll all be on Earth, but
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
we got the helpful, see folks, I make a call, come on and help, right? So, but this is the hospital for future generations. This is the hospital for Windsor-Essex and those that follow us. And then stage 5 is construction implementation. There's certain stop signs, as stated right there. A stop sign comes up to move from stage 1 to stage 2, and to get from stage 3 to stage 4 to go out to bid, there's another stop sign that occurs. As stated, it's a $2 billion investment, 90% of it by the province of Ontario. What we provided to you tonight is an economic impact assessment study as well that came along with the package to say what type of economic impact would this hospital and the whole system have. The economic impact just focuses on the hospital because that's data that is easily retrievable, and what that report talks about is how many jobs that this creates. And one of the things that that report, and what this is based upon, is other projects that have just completed very recently. So some of the things that it creates that I have to highlight is the fact that over a 3-year period, on average, it's going to create 530 construction jobs on site daily. At the peak, it's going to have over 1,100 on site jobs at the peak of construction, and it's going to contribute approximately $1.7 billion to our GDP. The 14,000 full-time equivalents or labor income of 1.12 billion is the estimation for the whole project and everything that goes, all the suppliers that feed into it as well, to support just the acute care hospital alone. And needless to say, it's going to spur development in the surrounding area. Now, comparisons to other projects, and this is where this information comes from, you don't have to look far, is the Niagara Health System had 700 workers at its peak, 85% local contractors, and it was 1 million square feet. Again, we're looking at between 1.6 to 1.8 million square feet for the new acute care hospital, so it's about 60% of the size. The great thing about local contractors, when we built the TAFOR campus and renovated the TAFOR campus, one of the commitments we made to the community was we were going to have at least 80% local contractors. We had 90% at the end of the day. Humber River Hospital just completed. The CEO of Humber River is going to be coming to Windsor-Essex at the end of January to speak to our community. Dr. Ruben Devlin and his hospital just completed a couple months ago. It's almost identical to what we're going to be seeing here in Windsor-Essex. It's the first digital hospital in all North America, had 1,200 workers at its peak. Halton Healthcare also just completed, a little smaller than our project, but again, 1,100 workers on the site daily, most from Halton and the GTA. So how did those projects happen? We've talked about this, that those projects along with our project won't be able to happen with respect to fundraising from our community to get that 10%. It's not going to happen. And here's some examples of projects that are currently underway or have been completed with respect to the municipal contribution, and that's outlined in the report as well. You have Mackenzie Health, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, but the Oakville Hospital, $130 million was the municipal contribution. They had raised, their foundation had raised $60 million. The original ask was $200 million, but they were able to reduce that ask by the amount of money that they were able to raise in their local community in Oakville. Joseph Brandt, smaller project, $60 million municipal contribution, William Osler, and Niagara Health System. So if we focus on those are the amounts of the project and the amount of the municipal contribution by way of a levy. We focus on Mackenzie Health, Vaughan, which is just about to start construction. The City of Vaughan and the Region of New York together contributed over $197 million for the local share of their acute care hospital. The City of Vaughan committed $80 million for the purchase of the hospital lands, and the Region of New York dedicated $117 million for this particular project and actually $35 million for another hospital project. So again, the local fundraising effort is the 10%. So what we're here before you is we put together a document which outlines the request is that we have to raise $200 million over a 10-year period. One of the benefits is if we start this early, we don't have to make the actual payment until 3 months before we actually move in. So if we assume it's going to take 10 years and what we have before you is we're saying we would not be making the request for the money until 10 years, no earlier than 10 years. So if for some reason we get the project done earlier, it's going to be up to the hospitals to figure out how they're going to finance to get to that 10th year. But so county council and eventually city council have some comfort that there's a date certain it won't be asked for before that particular date. Again, the monies will be held by the county or by the city, but by the county. Whatever is raised by the county will be held by the county. It will not be payable to either hospital until we move in 3 months before we move in. The way the projects are financed is they're financed through Infrastructure Ontario, and the contractor basically holds the financing until the construction job is completed. And then they get the monies from us at substantial completion, the local share. The monies, again, raised through a levy. The determination of how that $200 million is to be divided between the city and county would be determined after, if you folks say yes, we support this, and the city says yes, we support this, then exactly the division would be the next part of the discussion on how it would be divided between the city and the county at that point. Any monies we raise locally for the construction would reduce the levy request. So if we can have a very good successful campaign, then that'll reduce the $200 million that would be contributed by both the city and the county combined. And that's outlined here. Now, we still have monies to replace the existing, oh, sorry, kind of clicked ahead. Is there still, as part of this, a requirement with respect to replacement of equipment that we will still be fundraising as well in addition to the new hospital construction? Is what happens is when you move to stage 2, you start really examining your existing equipment that's in the acute care hospitals and determining a lifespan, determining what can move over, how you can maximize that lifespan when you move over into the new facility, so you can minimize what you have to purchase in the new facility, and definitely what you're purchasing now, you make sure that it has use in the new facility, that you're not buying something that's only, it has a 20-year lifespan. You have to buy something that only works for you now, but can be moved to the new facility as well, that you don't limit yourself there. That's a lot of the planning work that gets done. And at the end of the day, like I talked about, there is competition out there for these types of projects, and we have to show the province that we are very serious with respect to this particular project and moving it forward. In your package as well is one letter from the Windsor-Essex Chamber of Commerce, and I just want to highlight one part of it is having the province pay for 90% of the proposed $2 billion has to be moved forward and commenced as quickly as possible. The creation of some 600 plus jobs over a 3-year period with a maximum of 1,100 jobs at its peak is desperately needed, let alone the spin-off investment this system will create. Then also in your package you were given today is a letter from the Windsor-Essex Development Commission, and I'd like to highlight very similar about the new construction at both the old Satellite, the redevelopment of Let, the investment at TAFOR, and the continued future growth, the estimated creation of 1,100 jobs, and how they encourage the City of Windsor and the County of Essex to act favorably on the request for a $200 million levy and to move forward as quickly as possible with respect to that. So based upon that presentation, we're available to answer any questions that County Council might have. And again, we really want to thank you for giving us time tonight to talk about the project and where we stand.
Questions? Mr. McNamara.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you to the panel. In the total bill, the $2 billion, you know, is there a breakout in terms of what the cost would be to redevelop, you know, the old Hotel du Grace site, and then the Grace, the new facility itself? Is that part of that $2 billion? And here, I don't want to split hairs or anything, but a lot of that is to service the core area of the city, and not the county. I don't believe. Maybe I'm wrong. I stand to be corrected in that. So how much of that will be to develop those two other sites? The TAFOR one, I have no issue with that part, because obviously it's the 60 acute mental health beds that are regional in concept, and that's a benefit to all of us. And why I'm getting to that point too is that the $200 million that's going to be required from us locally, you know, and there was mention earlier on about to help those assets. Obviously, we got to, you know, it's like buying the walls, but we got to paint it, but not paint it, but we got to put the furniture inside, so to speak. And I look at what's happening with Leamington, and so if the county's contributing a large sum of money, and down the road, if there's capital requirements for Leamington, for example, then we have to obviously look at them as well. So, so how much of the $2 billion is actually for those other two facilities in the downtown Windsor core, and then I'll follow up with another question afterwards.
So approximately out of the $2 billion, 75% of it is the new acute care hospital. The new urgent care center at the Grace site is valued at about $150 million. The investments at Olet are valued at approximately the same, a little bit lower, and then the investment at TAFOR is the remainder to get to the $2 billion. With respect to the urgent care center, it services the region. Individuals from Windsor and or Essex will have access and should go to the urgent care center if they don't have an issue that requires emergency care services. We've seen the example we use is at Queensway in Toronto. When we were there, they showed us their urgent care center and how individuals, they say, drive past 4 hospitals to get to their urgent care center, 4 emergency departments, because of the benefits it has, as Janice pointed out, to take care of those lower acuity patients, the ones who, as Janice indicated, 85%, 90% of the patients that walk into an emergency department, period, do not get admitted. What happens when you walk into an emergency department today, if a patient comes in by way of ambulance that requires emergency services because they have vital signs absent, it's all hands on deck. And as a result, those individuals who might have the broken arm, might have the need the sutures, all hands on deck are focusing on what we call the CTAS 1s, the CTAS 2s. And as a result, that delays the rest of the individual in an emergency department their stay. If there's a way to segregate those populations and have an area which is the urgent care center to take care of those patients by themselves, and they don't have EMS arriving with patients, what they've been able to see is the throughput's that much faster. So I get the location is in the core, but it really services the whole region. Windsor and Essex, and it's meant to service at start about 40,000 individuals that attend the emergency department now, with an ability to grow as well. The goal is not to have people go to the acute care emergency department that don't need to be there, and those go there. If for some reason someone has to be transported, again, what we heard in Queensway, it's like a maximum of 3 a day as people figure it out. So that's that. So on the percentage basis in the urgent care center, that's that answer. With respect to Leamington, Leamington's on the steering committee. We've had direct discussions with Leamington regarding this plan, and I know the board chair as well as the CEO and the vice chair have made it very clear, and I think they've reached out to say that this project for the residents of Leamington is needed. Is we rely upon each other, is Leamington relies upon Windsor Regional Hospital and Hotel de Grace Healthcare for services that they can't provide in Leamington, and vice versa. We rely upon Leamington, as outlined when we did the EMS work, to try to have Leamington patients go to Leamington to possibly be seen quicker and faster and in a more expedited fashion. So we have a very close relationship. We work together, and a strong Leamington is a strong Windsor, and a strong Windsor is a strong Leamington when it comes to hospital health care.
If I may add, before you go to the follow-up question, with regards to the Willette campus, there's a couple of things that I'd like to just add to that, which is that when we talk about the mental health programming that'll be on the Willette campus in the downtown core, that is part of the regional mental health programming that we'll be offering to the whole of Windsor Essex. So it's not just a transitional stability center that'll be servicing mentally ill and addicted and homeless individuals from the downtown. It's also all of our outpatients crisis. Some of our ACT teams are going to be there. We provide regional mental health services through the MHRU and the Coast teams as well. So that mental health hub is housing the regional services as well. And the community component, the community development piece, that isn't part of the new hospital system ask. It's before council and before the City of Windsor. That will be something that will be developed privately by Hotel de Grace Healthcare. And so that community piece, we're giving that into the presentation to allow for folks to see that there's going to be a full-scale development on that property, but that is not part of the system that's being proposed.
I promise I'm sure we're not all going to answer every question, but I just want to add one thing going back to the task force. At the beginning, one of the things that people expressed a concern about was if we go to one acute care hospital and we only have one emergency room, will the hospital be able to cope? So I don't think you can take the urgent care center out and say that's for Windsor and not for us. It's part of the whole system that makes it work. If we don't have an urgent care center to divert people, yes, probably will be more heavily used by folks in the city. But if we don't divert those people and they're all going to the emergency at the acute care facility, then that acute care facility won't serve the people of the county very well either. It's part of a system, and it all comes together.
Further?
So thank you for that. Then, and I understand the separation in terms of, broken bones or, the minor impact, but take space in an emergency room in the acute care hospital and that. Well, I'm driving at too. So the level of service that you're going to provide there, is it a higher level than, say, in Tecumseh? We've got a beautiful urgent care center, TMC, where there's 23 physicians that are there, and they do a lot of good work, and they do so forth. Are you going to be offering a higher level of service that, say, TMC or other urgent care centers, whether they're in LaSalle or other areas? Because obviously convenience, close to home, the elimination of going to the emergency rooms I think are critical pieces in terms of the healthcare system in that. But will they be offering a higher level?
So it's going to be, TMC is a great facility run by great healthcare professionals. TMC, as compared to what the urgent care center provides, the urgent care center is going to have emergency room physicians, emergency room nurses who are going to work for a particular amount of time at the urgent care center and then be working at the acute care center and vice versa. So their skills with respect to dealing with emergency services is that much higher. So if someone does happen to collapse on the sidewalk outside of the urgent care center, you have emergency room physicians, emergency room nurses available to take care of them. The game changer, the difference really between, say, a TMC or another clinic like that in the urgent care center is the CT scanner. CT scanners, if an individual comes into a facility, a non-urgent care center, if they have a brain injury, what has to happen is they got to get a CT to find out if they're having a stroke, if they're having a bleed, and the only way you can really do that is with a CT scanner. So a lot of individuals who have a head injury have to go to the emergency department just to get that CT scanner. By having it at the urgent care center, it can eliminate a lot of those issues. If for someone has a bleed or a serious issue as a stroke, they're able to be stabilized and transported to the new acute care hospital, or they get to go home and they don't have to wait at the acute care hospital for the CT. So that's the two major differences with respect to that type of clinic is, in effect, it's an emergency department that doesn't take ambulances, but it has all the other services that an emergency department would have.
So in other words, it's an emergency room without the acute beds attached to it.
So the example I thought
That's what you
Janice
could
was going to
use.
give, it's a walk-in clinic on steroids.
I didn't want to say that.
See, all right? That's when she said, David usually gives this example. I thought she was going to give that one. She stopped herself, so.
I
But
did. I did.
Does that help?
If I can add to that, I think from the other perspective is that in a walk-in clinic situation or an urgent care center, as we typically know them, the physicians and the staff that are working there are working on a family physician or a team-based environment protocol for assessments. When you go into the urgent care center that is part of this proposal, they'll be working on the emergency room and triage assessments. So you get that emergency department assessment skill and triaging ability as well. And so it's very, it's not that it's better care, but it's more oriented to that emergency type population that comes into an urgent care center, which is different than those that come into the urgent care after hours clinics.
And the goal is, one of the things we heard from the ministry when we put this forward is they said we need to wrap primary care around the urgent care center, because they don't want people to use the urgent care center as their family physician. So one of the great things that happened is the Windsor Family Health team now is going to be joining us at the urgent care center, and what they're going to be able to provide is if someone comes there, doesn't have a family physician, we can match the two up. So they do walk out of the place with a family physician and try to avoid going to urgent care and avoid going to an emergency department.
Mr. Antaya?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I guess my question is pretty simple. Basically, has to do with what you're here for this evening, and that's cash. I just want to know, you indicated, Mr. Boucher, you indicated that that there would be some fundraising efforts. There might be contributions that might be in-kind, would there be in-kind services, those types of things. I guess we're probably going to be looking at all kinds of contributions as this thing catches hold in the community. So what you're looking for from council and from the city will be just simply a guarantee for the 200 million. The determination of who's paying what will be determined probably in discussions through our administrations. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're coming to county council first, is to ask that county council supports, subject to their negotiations with the city of Windsor, with respect to sharing of the $200 million levy. So we're not asking county council to come up with all 200.
I understand.
Yep, yep.
The city can pick up 190 and we can...
Exactly. There you go. There's a deal. Broker done. Let's move that. So,
But
so
anyway.
yeah, and now the second piece is with respect to the fundraising. Yes, the campaign. The concept's this, very simple. And I don't want to put pressure on you or the city of Windsor, but if the levy's not supported, we're not doing anything. All right? And that's just life with the examples I gave you. The ministry will not accept a letter from us saying we're going to do this all by way of fundraising. They're going to say, no, you're not going to be able to do it. You need to have the levy as your backup plan. So what we're saying is our request is for the city and the county, no greater than $200 million, not payable before 10 years. How that's to be divided up is between the city and the county with respect to the division, and any fundraising we receive for construction will reduce that amount, that $200 million. And you're looking at the start of the campaign is up on the screen behind you. That campaign kicks off the moment the county and the city say thumbs up, we support the concept, then we go in earnest with respect to a campaign over the next 10 years.
I guess that was my point.
Yeah.
You're just simply looking at us to, if you don't get another dime of fundraising elsewhere, our total commitment would be $200 million between the two.
Exactly.
Corporations.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, thank you. Sorry it took long to
Well, that's
answer
okay.
that.
That's a good explanation.
Mr. Fazio?
Thank you. My question is, you answered some of my questions, but my concern is regarding the cleaned asset, the cleared asset. And I can appreciate, us being the request for funding. Why would the city get the whole asset, cleaned asset? If we're asking for if you're asking for support from us, wouldn't we be part of that? Because they can recoup a little bit of their costs. Now, I might have missed this in previous meetings.
Yeah, they gave us the Grace site.
But, okay, we switched it around.
We
Okay.
switched. Yep, sorry.
Okay,
It was a
no,
land
I'm just
swap.
saying, just to
Yep.
clarify, I couldn't
Yeah, yeah.
remember, because...
Yeah, so there was a land
so
swap.
the switch is land swap.
Yeah, so we got the Grace site clean, and
Okay.
they received
No,
the
no,
Met
that's
site
a
clean.
fair comment.
Yeah.
No, I just couldn't remember, so let's
Yep.
make sure I
No,
ask
thank
my
you.
question.
No.
Thank you.
Mr. McKinney?
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening, and the guests in the audience there. My question, Jerry, would be the stage 2 you talked about, the if and when. Is there a date timeline to that stage 2? I know it just had stage 2. Are we looking at 2018, 2000? Any date? Is that still up in the air? It's still at the high level?
No, what we are in the final discussions with the ministry with respect to stage 1B. We're expecting early next year, 2016, to be in a position to move to stage 2.
Okay.
And that's why we're here.
And now the 200 million in terms of the commitment, the city and the county, if it doesn't happen, that 200 million still remains, in terms of the city, the county money. It's not money that's going to be spent, like I saw up there, until it's approved. That's when the money gets spent, and obviously then you go from there.
Exactly.
So this is more of that commitment from the municipalities to show the province, look, we mean business, we want to move forward with this hospital.
Exactly, and it gives hopefully the county and the city an opportunity over a period of 10 years to raise those funds and keep those funds and earn interest on those funds. If this project does not move ahead, you decide what you're going to do with those funds, but they never touch our fingers. If this project moves ahead, as stated, there'll be, needless to say, Brian or whoever will be on the committee, and there'll be regular updates with respect to the progress. But what we've committed is saying we will not ask for those funds no earlier than 10 years from, I think it's 2026 we put in the document.
Well, you may not be able to answer this, it's more of the provincial thing, but the ministry, in terms of their 90% share, do they have a capital life cycle? Is this something where they've put money aside, or is that something they're going to have to come up with? Because again, that's a 90%, that we're talking $2 billion.
$8 billion.
And how many hospitals are they planning in terms of ministry budgeting that, look, in the next 5 years, we're going to fund 2 hospitals provincially? So that, and again, I'm not asking you for an answer, but if you know any.
Right now, there are 3 projects pretty much in the same area we are, which is one in Muskoka, one in Ottawa, and ourselves are in around the same range. I would imagine, from what I read and listen to, that the province doesn't have a lot of $1.8 billion. So as a result, if you can access it, you can access it. You want to do it sooner than the others. If for some reason the province at some point says we're going to delay infrastructure investment in the province of Ontario, the thing is we have to be in the queue. The last thing we want is someone to jump us in the queue when they slow down or do whatever. We don't want that to happen. But this is really about hospital infrastructure investment in Windsor-Essex. even if this doesn't go ahead, we're still back to where we were, which is looking at the OLET campus and looking at MET, which we don't think even ourselves is a good solution. So the choice is not between 0 and $2 billion. The choice actually was between $2.2 billion in 2008 dollars and $2 billion. So we actually went this way, save less money, and in our opinion, a much better result for the system. So, but yes, there's just so much money available in the province, and I'll speak as bluntly as I can. If I was sitting in the province, I'd be saying, how can I avoid spending $1.8 billion in Windsor, Essex, or somewhere else? In my opinion, we put forward, we have the levy. That puts a lot of pressure on the province to deliver a new hospital for Windsor, Essex, and the hospital system for Windsor, Essex. That was delivered in Humber, that was delivered in Oakville, that's being delivered in Vaughan.
Okay, if I can, just to clarify, that 200 million then is construction money only, planning, etc., is picked up by the province?
Sorry, it's
The 200 million?
the planning money comes from the province. The 35 million is in addition. So, yeah.
But our portion from the county and the city is construction money?
Construction, bricks and mortar.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Carlo?
Thank you, Warden, and through you, first, thank you very much for all the work that you've done up to now. You've done a lot of presentations, so I think we got a pretty good understanding of what you've done to get us here. As far as timelines go, is a simple commitment of us saying, yes, we will be doing the levies, and yes, we will be funding it, going to be enough for the province? Or is the province going to come back and say, no, until we've confirmed the county and the city share, and you have a levy, and we start putting money in the bank, then we'll go ahead?
And Dave can correct, but if you folks say we're supporting the levy and the city says we're supporting the levy, and I would imagine the discussions on other than 190 versus 10, you know, take a different type of negotiations. We're in a position to say there was a motion passed at the county, a motion passed at the city. If you still haven't worked out the details, they're going to take that seriously. Clearly, they're going to want to see the details of how it's split, because that could fall apart. If it's 190 and 10 million, then we fall apart. They would want to see that done. Then it's a matter of how you raise those funds is up to the county, when it starts, how it starts. But we have a letter from the county and a letter from the city saying that. In my opinion, that gives us a lot of pressure to say to the province of Ontario, it's time. Let's move this project ahead. Give us the 35 million.
I think the pressure will be there, but I think the province is going to also want to, they're going to want to make sure that there's a real commitment. So I'm sure there will be, that they want to, they're going to want to see some evidence that you got a plan and that it's going to, there is going to be a start date, because we know you're not going to collect $200 million at the end of 10 years. You do it over the 10 years. So I think David's right. They're going to take you seriously, but I think it's got to be a concrete plan.
Mr. McDermott?
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you to the delegation and anyone who had anything to do with this project. Congratulations and thank you very much. Like, some of us will never see this, as you said, Dave, you know, come to fruition, but I have 7 great-grandsons that are going to benefit from this, and all I can say is thank you, and I feel better already.
Mr. McNamara?
I mean, we're at a crossroad. I mean, I want to thank, obviously, the committee and you know, the hard work. And I know, you know, people don't understand the mega hours and I know all the mega dollars that all those volunteers have made over the last 2 years getting ready for this. But no, I'm just kidding. We're going to have this hospital. There has to be a commitment. There's no question. And in my opinion, we just simply don't have any choice. I mean, obviously, and I agree, it's one thing to say, well, yeah, we support you 100% and so forth, but you got to put it in writing that there will be a levy. And that's the reality we're faced with. And how we do it, you know, at the end of the day, we'll have to figure that out. Will taxes go up? Sure they will. And no different than what the town of Tecumseh has done 11 years ago or 12 years ago. We put a capital levy, and guaranteed a levy for 10 years so that we could be in a position that our infrastructure would be fully funded, and we did that. We took our lumps with the media, we took our lumps with even our own citizens, but today they're quite pleased to see a zero tax increase in the community, but that's because they took the initiative 3 councils ago to put money in the bank so that we can pay for infrastructure in the future. This is obviously an asset, and I think I take for granted in terms of what Mayor McDermott just said. It's about our grandkids and everybody else behind us. If we're to maintain, I think, our seats with the provincial government in our medical school, if we are to keep you know, good medical professionals in our community, it's critically important that we give them the tools. And you know, at the end of the day, I've always been one to say, you know, charity does start at home, but also healthcare for our citizens start at home. Far too long we send our chronically ill patients, whether it's heart and so forth, to London or Detroit and other areas. There's a cost to that. You know, I look at what we have to pay in terms of additional services with EMS and transportation and everything else that we do. Yes, we get some funding from the province to help us there, but those are all additional costs that we're paying that we shouldn't be paying. That could be utilized to be diverted into a capital campaign such as the hospital moving forward. I guess at the very beginning, I feel like I'm just engaged. I'm getting married to my bride, and I got to go out and get a mortgage on a house. And you know, that very first one you looked at, you know, you're actually shaking when you're signing that first mortgage paper. But you know, 40 years after marriage, and then that's been taken care of. You know what? It wasn't that bad after the fact. And
Your wife's going to appreciate you saying that, Gary.
she will, you know, and after 40 years, God love her, she's got, I think she's going to bypass purgatory, she's going right to the pearly gates. But you know, in all seriousness, I think it's this community, some more, whatever reason, any type of project, and even some of the capital campaigns we've gone prior, we found a way, and we'll find a way in order for us to get the job done. I'm very competitive as well, and I'll be damned if I lose this to Ottawa or Muskoka's. Nice place to go visit in the summertime, but this is something I think is for the next 75 years to 100 years from now. This is about building our community. This is about taking care of our own. This is about establishing a health care that is second to none. And this is what we need to do. I don't know what the levies are going to be. Mr. Masonville is going to have to figure that out for us moving forward, but it has to be done, and we'll figure it out. I really believe that we'll figure it out, and as we've done in the past. And again, I want to extend my thanks to both. I mean, when you guys were in deliberations about both boards, you know, coming under one umbrella, you know, all the cynics were out there saying, well, that'll never happen, you know, so we're going to be safe for the next 20 years. But God, you guys did it in a matter of weeks. So kudos to everyone, and for the hard work, and we're just going to have to find a way, and we will. And at the proper time, when, if you're looking for that motion in direction, Mr. Warden, I'd be willing to move that forward at the proper time.
Okay, I'll come back to you. I have a number of speakers listed here to go yet, but I would like to turn to Mr. Gregg. I know administration and our treasury has been wearing pencils down working on this, so maybe Mr. Gregg, you can kind of update us a little on what you've been working on.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And really it was to build upon the question and a comment from Mayor DiCarlo about the commitment. If we were to receive a commitment from council this evening, I can assure you that our commitment will certainly be manifested in the 2016 budget. That Rob and his staff and in consultation with me and the warden, we're already developing plans. At this 5 minutes, we're not sure of the exact amount, nor are we sure of the timing. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we know we need to start planning for something that's going to take a considerable amount of time to raise the capital for and to pay it. You know, as the delegation has indicated, we're not going to have to make a payment until 10 years from now. That gives us a head start on being able to starting to make the plans within the county's budget in a way that's responsible, that's fair to the taxpayers, but at the same time will get us to a point where we can have sufficient capital in our base that will allow us to pay a hospital off over a reasonable amount of time. Are we going to be able to raise $100 million or $80 million or $10 million over 5 years? Not likely. We know we're going to have to make a payment in 10 years to the hospital, but I would suggest our time frames are probably, we're looking at 20-something years to pay it off, when you look at the life cycle of a facility like that. But as far as making a commitment to the province or demonstrating a commitment to the province, I think when council is presented with the 2016 budget and there's an element within that budget that begins our commitment, I think that can further serve to the province that we're serious about this, that we've made the resolution and we're starting immediately to make good on that commitment.
Okay. Mr. Queen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I certainly appreciate the feedback from our CEO, because those are the types of questions I had in my own mind, and I appreciate Mr. McNamara's comments as well. I don't think the challenge will be as much at this table as it will at another table deliberating. We in our municipalities have not gone with a zero-based budget for many of us. We have recognized the fact that costs do go up. And the challenge, I think, as we present it to our ratepayers, will be the fact that, yes, we have to do something for the future. Mr. McNamara made reference to a mortgage in reality, and I'm glad that Mr. Gregg as well articulated the fact that we don't have to raise the whole money through a levy during 10 years, recognizing the fact that the life cycle is longer. And thanks to Mr. Mathernville, we have a good credit rating as a county of Essex, so that helps moving forward. I think we have an option. The option is to say no, let Ottawa take the money. I don't think that's a realistic option. I think the realistic option is to move forward, and I would be happy to second Mr. McNamara's motion should he choose to make it.
Okay, I'll take Mr. McNamara's motion and Mr. Queen, you as seconder. Then I'll move to Mr. Antaya.
Actually, that's exactly what I was going to do. It's we didn't come this far to jump off the ship. So, I mean, we made the commitment. We knew the $200 million was coming. It was just a matter of when. Now it's up to administration's job to come up with a report, as indicated by Mr. Gregg, that will identify our obligation and how we're going to pay for it. Certainly, we recognize it's going to be a tough financial issue for the county and for all of its member municipalities. But we also recognize the need in the region, and we can't, this is a no-brainer. We just cannot abandon something like this. So I was going to I was going to move the resolution, but since Mr. McNamara has, I'm fully in favor. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bondi?
I was going to pass the resolution as well, so
Okay.
it's done.
Sounds very good then. Is there any further comments, questions from anyone on the resolution? resolution. Those in favor? It is carried unanimously.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in.